Welcome to Moving Panels One Shot. Let's have a nerdy little conversation. And today, joining me on this kind of reminiscent of our childhood, this nostalgia journey, if you will, I have with me the creator and host of, it's very fitting, the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Please welcome returning guest host, always a pleasure to have, Tim Williams. How are you, Tim?
I'm good, Laramy. How are you doing, man?
I'm wonderful. I'm kind of excited to talk about this. I've been thinking about things from my childhood to kind of mention. So we're just going to chat, talk about how kind of superheroes played a part growing up as, growing up in the 80s. I rolled over into the 90s a little bit in my childhood, but mainly 80s.
Yeah, I got a few years on you, so I can understand that.
Yeah, but I mean, the days of underoos and the hard plastic mask Halloween costumes.
Yeah, exactly. With the little rubber band that went around the back that would always break and pop the back of your ear.
Yes, but of course it was just attached with a staple.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
so you just stapled it back.
Yeah, somewhere in a factory that said, "Yeah, that'll work."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what happens when the plastic gets cut and it starts slicing into the kid's face? It'll be fine. It's one night. It's just exactly. 1 night.
Yeah. He'll only have it on for about 30 minutes anyway. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. It'll be on the top of his head by the second house.
And what are we going to make the actual body of the costume out of? The same stuff they make trash bags out of. That's
exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's cold in October or anything. Not that they need any kind of warmth when they're out, trick or treating. So.
Yeah. That's great stuff. Let's get back to the underoos, though. Did you have underoos?
Of course I did.
Do you remember which underoos you had?
I'm pretty. The one I know for sure I had was the Luke Skywalker, which was the X-wing fighter suit. So it was the orange kind of front, like was that when I'm Return of the Jedi? Was it? Which one was he in the X-wing fighter?
I'm a comic book guy. Don't ask me about Star Wars.
It was Empire. No, it was Empire Strikes Back. It's the like flight suit thing he has on when he lands on Dagobah. Yeah. So it's kind of like an orange looking. So I remember having that because on the back of the packaging on cardboard there was a picture of Yoda, and you could fill out your name and address to become like a Jedi, an official Jedi or something like that. And I remember sending that off and getting my Jedi certificate in the mail as a kid. So I definitely remember that. Yeah. I know I had that one, and then I'm pretty sure I had a Spider-Man one.
Yeah, I think I had the Spider-Man one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also, I don't know if this was officially underoos or what it was, but there were the pajamas.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember having a Superman. It was the shirt and the pants. Mm-hmm. And then there was a cape attached with Velcro.
Yep. And
you mentioned Spider-Man. I had a Spider-Man one that for some reason also had a cape.
I don't doubt it.
I do remember that.
Yeah. And I'm saying, I know I had the Superman pajamas as well, because when you said, I was like, I know there was a cape with Velcro. And as soon as you said, I was like, yeah, we must have had this, probably had the same brand or whatever. Yeah. And I want to say did I have a Batman? I think I had a couple of the pajamas, which was probably, I probably had the Superman and the Batman, both with the cape.
The Batman one was the gray with the yellow oval. Yeah,
exactly.
And then you had the utility belt.
Yes.
Drawn onto it.
Yep.
Yeah. No, but I had that one as well.
As a matter of fact, I know I had that one because I have a picture of me like on Christmas morning in that Batman pajama minus the cape. Yeah. I had those on, so. When you said the utility belt, that picture immediately flashed in my mind because I remember the utility belt, the yellow utility belt across the bottom. So,
and then it was long sleeve with the blue around the wrist. Oh yeah, no, exactly. I remember it well. What about toys? What'd you have in terms of toys?
As far as superheroes, I don't remember having any superhero kind. I mean, Star Wars figures is like the earliest I can remember. And then, of course, I got into G.I. Joe a little bit later. But I don't think I may have had like a Superman or Batman or maybe both, but they were the larger ones. They weren't the small, they weren't the Star Wars and G.I. Joe size. They were the much bigger kind of the original GI Joe dolls that were
like the
more
Barbie
like
size.
like a 12 inch or 10
the,
to 12 inch. Yeah.
yeah, the Mecco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say I had like a Superman and a Batman of those, but I didn't have them very long once I got a little older. So.
Oh, see, I had I think there was just, it said superpowers, but it was the Super Friends, like, packaging. Is the figures that were a little bigger than GI Joe characters. And they were the ones like, and they had like the cloth capes, which you just automatically lost.
Yeah.
And then they had the actions, like Superman. I think it was you squeezed his legs together and his arms would kind of do a pumping motion.
Yep, I remember that.
And I'm wanting to say, like, Flash, you actually had to squeeze the arms together and his feet would do the yeah. And then like Joker had this big mallet, and you put it in one of his hands, and then I think you squeezed his legs, and he would bring the mallet down or bring his hand down.
Yep, I've got a vague memory of that.
Yeah. They came in the bright, colorful packaging. They even came with a little mini comic inside of them.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then I had the Hall of Justice. What am I saying I had? Let's just go ahead and be clear on this. It's still sitting over here on the shelf.
I was going to say, people on the podcast can't see this, but I'm looking at your cave behind, your man cave recording studio, and there's about, I'm going to take a guess, about 60 different Superman figurines behind you. And that's just what I can see that's behind you, and there's no telling what's on the other side. So
yeah. Well, and this is all Superman, but really down here, I've got a shelf in another part of this. I'm down in my basement, but another part of the basement, there's a shelf that the Hall of Justice is sitting on it, and then there's a box next to it, and that box contains all of these original toys that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got Lex Luthor, Joker, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, Dr. Fate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And now I will admit some of them don't have legs, or they're missing an arm.
Right. You were a kid. You did play with these.
Yes, I did play with them. The paint's faded or kind of worn off. My original Superman actually sits here in this Superman room. He's faded, but he does sit down here, and it's the original one, the one I owned and played with as a kid. But I'll also tell you, on that same shelf with the Hall of Justice, I also have Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain. So
there you go.
There's just some more 80s for you.
Yeah.
For you there.
Yeah, I didn't get as much into the He-Man stuff. I had a good friend of mine lived across the street. He was all He-Man all the time. He had all the toys. And I remember playing with the toys, but I never got into the show and stuff. But
well, so yeah, you are a little bit older than me. So let's sneak into the late 80s, into the 90s. Were you young enough for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle trend?
Yes and no. Like I remember seeing the movies when the original movies that came out, and I liked those.
But we're talking the cartoon, and the action figures.
Yeah. I didn't have any of the figures. I had friends that had the figure. Like I had younger friends that had the figures, and I remember watching the cartoons a little bit, but that was a little. I was a little past that by the time that really hit big. So
yeah, I was still at a good age for that. So that was another. I remember I think it was Leonardo first, and then it was starting to be. I mean, you used to walk into Walmart, and it was like an entire aisle of Walmart was just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys.
Oh, I believe it.
And I remember my dad taking me so I could get the other 3, so that I would have all 4 of them.
All 4, yeah.
Yeah. And getting all of those and whatnot. Let's see, what other superhero stuff can we... What about shows? Do you remember, like, watching, Incredible Hulk?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I was thinking back to my earliest superhero memories, there's 3 that stand out immediately. And that's the Hulk TV show, because I know I watched that. Either the reruns would come on in the afternoon. I want to say I saw some of the original towards the end of the run, the original episodes as they came on at night. And then Wonder Woman, of course, with Linda Carter. I think my sister enjoyed watching that too. But funny story, we might have talked about this on one of our previous episodes talking about Wonder Woman. But when I was, I had to have been in like 2nd or 3rd grade. So it's very fuzzy in my memory. But I had a babysitter for after school, and it was like a lady that had an in-home kind of day, what we would call it in-home daycare at now these days.
Yeah.
But back then it was just like a lady that watched everybody's kids. But she had like a
my mom was one of those, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So she had like a big backyard, and like they had probably like one play set, but there was all this just open grass or whatever. But there was one girl that I would play with. I have no idea what her name is now, but I remember she always wanted to play Wonder Woman. But she was Wonder Woman, and I was always Steve Rogers, and I was always either beat up. Not Steve Rogers. No. What's the
Steve Trevor.
Steve Trevor. As soon as I said it, I was like, that's not right. We'll fix that in post. So she was always Wonder Woman, and I was always Steve Trevor, which means that I was always either just gotten beaten up or just got tied up somewhere, or I was the person in distress. So she'd be like, lay here on the ground, and I'm gonna run around. I'll come back and save you. And that's all I remember. That's all I remember of playing. It's like I never got to be the hero. I was always the one getting saved. So I remember that from Wonder Woman, and then I remember my aunt had a Batman and Robin record album, and I don't remember I think it had like the theme song at the beginning, because I remember that being the first time I heard the theme song, and then I think it must have been like audio recordings of some of the episodes, because I remember hearing their voices, and then it would like a narrator telling the story. But that was my first introduction to Batman, and then of course later I found out about the actual TV show, and I would see some of those, like they would come on. They didn't come on in the afternoons like Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman, because they're a little more recent. These would come on like early Saturday morning, or they would come on at weird times during the day.
Oh, how I miss early Saturday morning television.
Yeah, oh yeah. So I would catch like 2 episodes on a weekend or whatever of the old 66 Batman and Robin. And then one that's like very vague is, I remember one of the Spider-Man TV movies that had to have been like 80 or 81, and I meant to look it up before we got on. But I remember my mom was like, "Oh, there's going to be a Spider-Man movie on TV," and I was expecting like, this grand, movie. And then when I actually watched it, I was like, he doesn't really look that much like Spider-Man, and those are pretty bad. He's not really climbing the wall like I thought he would. So I obviously had seen some of the cartoons to know who Spider-Man was, but the TV movie did not live up to my expectations at age 6 or 7 or whatever I was at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the TV movie, but you were talking about Incredible. So I was too young for watching Incredible Hulk as it aired, because Incredible Hulk aired from 77 to 82.
Right.
And definitely not Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman was even earlier than that. It was like 75 to 79.
Yeah, exactly.
But of course, like you say, I remember watching them. I mean, growing up in the 80s, that's when cable TV was getting going, and before they had their own original programming, it was just, hey, let's find old stuff to air. So yeah, we definitely grew up with some stuff like that. I mean, Super Friends. They talked about having the action figures. I remember watching the cartoon.
Yeah, I do remember watching the cartoon of Super Friends.
Yeah.
Because I remember the Wonder Twins. Wonder Twins activate,
Yeah, power of a tiger. And then power of a block of ice.
It was power of a falcon and power of a bucket of water.
Which I always had a problem with. I was like, you can only turn into things that are water. A bucket's not made of water. Like, how are you turning into the bucket?
Yeah.
I questioned that. I also remember they like the Flash would be able to fly whenever he needed to. Like they would just have this shot of all of them flying, and it was just like the Flash was there flying with them. You're like, wait a minute, that's not how that works.
Right.
Or Aquaman would be flying with them. Okay, it's not how this works. You could definitely tell the people making that did not actually know the comics.
Yeah. I know I've seen like a meme recently of like a still shot from the old cartoon, and everybody's in like Wonder Woman's jet, and you're like, Superman can fly, Flash can run. It's like they didn't have to get in the plane and all ride together. They could have met her there if she was the one that had to fly.
Yeah.
So, but looking back, the Amazing Spider-Man movie came out in 1977. But there was a TV series from 77 to 79. So I'm probably mixing some of that up in my brain.
Yeah.
I must have seen one of the episodes of or they replayed the movie maybe once the TV show had been on for a couple of years, because 77 I would only been 3 or 4, and I doubt I remember that very well.
Yeah, 77. My parents had just graduated high school, so
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for making me feel even older than I feel.
There you go. No problem. Hey, look, I get it all the time. But yeah, no, it's just, there's just something about, yes, we had, the kids today are getting to grow up with the MCU and all of these live action, but there was just something, I know we're biased, but there was just something about growing up in the time we did when, superheroes weren't a mainstream thing. Like,
right.
It really was, like, it was a kid thing. And, it was just so much fun. Absolutely so much fun.
Yeah. And see, I missed, because people talk so much about the animated, like the Batman the animated series, or, some of those good comic book adaptation of animated series in the late 90s. Or is that mid 90s, late 90s?
Early 90s. It was early
90s. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't catch any of that because I was pretty much a teenager by that point. But yeah, some would say that was the heyday of the superhero animation. What we saw or I saw when I was a kid, like you said, they didn't know the source material well enough. They were just trying to make,
They were trying to sell toys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, Batman the Animated Series, which was 92 to 95, and then Superman picked up, I think, 95, and then Justice League. I don't consider that my childhood, because even though, I was, preteen when it started, that's when I was getting into teenage years. Yeah. And so, to me, childhood superhero is, the Wonder Woman television show, the Incredible Hulk television show, the Super Friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And Batman, the da 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 Batman. Yeah, that to me is superheroes. The running around with the Superman pajamas and the bed sheets. Oh yeah. I think I had I know I had a set of Superman bed sheets, because I remember the pillow was just the S.
Oh yeah.
It was I think it was even just a white pillow case, but then the S was printed on it. Yeah. Of course we're talking 80s here, so I think the print on it was like some sort of material that was really stiff and uncomfortable, but
right.
But we didn't care back then.
No, I had Star Wars, not the superheroes, but for my childhood, I had Star Wars sheets, and my mom actually found material and made Star Wars curtains for my room. So I had actually Star Wars
very nice
printed curtains. So
I just remembered this. Did you ever have a birthday party where they made the cake using the mold that looked like either Superman or Batman?
Oh yeah.
And then it also had the little like plastic face that they would just put on it.
I don't remember the plastic face, but I definitely remember the molds.
I remember the plastic face. Like, it was the same body, but then depending on whether you decorated it to look like Superman or Batman, there was a little plastic face of either Superman or Batman to put on it. Some good times. Well.
Oh yeah, scratching that good old nostalgic itch right there.
Yeah, which is exactly what your podcast does.
Oh yeah.
Every 2 weeks you get to relive a 80s movie with Tim and his guest host, and that's always a fun one, and every now and then you pull one out that I forget about, or have forgotten about, I should say.
Yeah. We try to hit the blockbusters and some of the lesser known or lesser remembered movies, so that's kind of the fun of the episode.
All right, well, be sure you check out Tim and his podcast, the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. You can find it anywhere you find this show. And for this show, please rate and review us, follow us on social media, do all that. Show us all the love. That's what we want. Show us all that love. Do the same thing for the 80s Flick Flashback. And thank you, Tim, for joining me and us reliving a little bit of childhood in this one shot.
Yes, thank you. Brought much joy to me on this evening. To think back of those. Now I want to go find all these shows and find them on some streaming service now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think a good chunk of it's on Peacock, so
Yeah.
I think Wonder Woman is.
Well, Wonder Woman is on HBO Max.
Oh, there you go. Well,
we started. My wife and I started that one when we first got HBO Max, and Incredible Hulk was on Hulu for a while because we made it through like the first season of that a couple of years ago.
I think the Super Friends have been posted on HBO Max too.
Probably a lot of Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers properties, DC stuff.
Of course, it doesn't matter to me. I own them all on DVD. So
of course you do.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. You probably got some VHS in there too, don't you?
Actually, no. I do not have any of that stuff on VHS. Scratch that. I may actually have some Super Friends on VHS. But Wonder Woman and Incredible Hulk, those are on DVD. DVD box sets.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. For Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Hello movie viewers and fellow movie lovers. My name is Tim Williams and I'm the creator and host of Movie Views Presents the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. See, I love the 80s and I have a great appreciation and nostalgic passion for the classic 80s flicks that birthed my love for movies and ultimately helped shape my childhood. On each episode, I'll discuss, with a special guest co-host of course, a different film from the 1980s. We'll share memories, favorite characters, iconic scenes, and even share some behind-the-scenes stories along the way. We'll discuss famous blockbusters like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Coming to America, Ghostbusters, Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, Die Hard, and many, many more. As well as some other cult classics and even lesser-known flicks we discovered on cable TV or the now-defunct video rental stores. Remember those? No matter what 80s flick we choose to talk about, we'll always have a good time, so come and check us out. You can find the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast on major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and more. Be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode. Once again, I'm Tim Williams, and I hope you'll join me for the next 80s Flick Flashback.